Check out shares of Air Canada surging to the highest level in 13 months after the airline raised its full-year profit forecast. Results in the latest quarter topped expectations. Air Canada has been adding overseas routes and says the demand environment remains favorable. The carrier also plans to buy back shares for the first time since the pandemic. Centerra Gold is one of the worst performing stocks on the TSX today. Revenue and profit fell by more than expected in the miner's latest quarter, and costs increased. One analyst says investors are starting to focus on the company's molybdenum business, including potential partnerships or divestments, as spending ramps up on the restart of its Thompson Creek mine. Check out shares of Intel getting a boost today after the company beat revenue estimates in the latest quarter and issued a revenue forecast that was higher than expected. Intel also posted sales in its data center and AI segment that topped estimates. The company also announced a series of cost reduction initiatives, including cutting more than 16,000 jobs. So tech is a strong component. You can see the NASDAQ is recovering here after a pretty sharp sell-off of more than 2%. Under the hood of the NASDAQ, what's driving the gains? Well, definitely it is Amazon, Intel, Lululemon also along for the ride, NVIDIA and ARM recovering from yesterday's sell-off. It's interesting, PayPal, which has been something of a dog since its earnings, continues to struggle here, though it's had a good run in 2024. Check out shares of auto part maker Magna up today after the company reported third quarter earnings that missed expectations and it cut its sales forecast for the year. So why is the stock trading up? Well, a couple of reasons. One, they're resuming their buyback ahead of schedule. And even though they cut their forecast, it was not as much as investors were anticipating. We've got Swami Kotagiri, who's the Chief Executive Officer at Magna, and he joins me now. Swami, thanks so much for joining me. This has been a tough environment to operate in. Just give us a sense of what levers you were able to pull to kind of offset what seems like a big industry downdraft.
First of all, good morning and thanks for having me. If I have to describe it in one word, it's operational excellence and focus. We've been really focused on margins. We have focused on free cash flow, all the operational initiatives in terms of cost reductions, discipline and capital, prioritization of engineering and R&D, with all the things that are happening in the industry, really shows how Magna as an organization works in terms of being nimble and being able to be resilient and react very quickly. As you have seen over the last 3-4 quarters, we've been able to reduce capital by about $300 million. Engineering prioritization has helped us reduce by $100 million. And all these initiatives put together is what has helped us to address all the headwinds and challenges that seem to be pretty common in the industry right now.
So let's talk about the forecast. Yes, you cut it, but as I mentioned, you didn't cut it as much as feared. One of your key customers like Ford is pulling back on production, and I'm trying to understand and reconcile where your outlook is coming from relative to the street. Where are you more incrementally positive than perhaps investors or analysts had been?
Yeah, I would like to step back and look at it more holistically for the whole year. And if you see what we've done during the earnings call in August, we did the reset with what was happening in the industry. And I think we continue to change that. Maybe we have taken a realistic view of what we see for the rest of the year in 24, 25, and 26, 3 months ahead of the others. And that could be the reason why the difference that everybody's seeing. That's one. The second part of it is, I think if you look at our expectations and compare it to the industry forecasters like the IHS, I think we could be pretty much aligned and maybe in some cases a little bit more conservative than them. The last part is we also look at our programs that we are having content on, our customers, our programs to a very granular level and take into account all the things that we are seeing in releases today compared to the planning volumes. We look at the inventory of the programs and vehicles that we have content on. So that's what kind of gives us confidence in what we're putting together. But with that said, things are changing on an everyday basis. That we can only react to by doing what we can with variables that we have in control in our operations by flexing.
Where do you think we are in the cycle, and when do you think we might see a bottom in the issues that the likes of Ford, the likes of Volkswagen, again, some of your customers that are dealing with?
Yeah, if you can predict the timing of the exact bottom, we would be in a different business. But I think, if you look at where we were in our cycle in the 17 and 18 and 19 to where we are, I would say we are on the lower side and hopefully look for tailwinds going forward. But this industry is cyclic, and we have seen that over and over again. And I always like to point out in 2004, North America was making roughly about 15.5 million units, and Magna was a $20 billion company. And today we make 15.5 million units again this year in North America, and Magna is a $43 billion company. So we are really focused on how we can plan what market share, which products, where do we participate, be very disciplined about it. That's all we can do. That's what is in our control, rather than get into the business of predictions of where the market is at its lowest.
Talk to me about the decision to bring the buyback back. Given, I think you had some stated goals around leverage, you're not quite there yet. What were the discussions around that? Why was now the right time? And how does that affect your ability to pay down debt, bring down leverage?
Great question. The first point is our principles of balance sheet remain unchanged. And as I said in my earnings call, we are not doing this in isolation. We have had meetings with the rating agencies. We have good visibility given where we are today, looking into 25. All the operational initiatives that we have gives us confidence that the free cash flow that we are planning into 25, we have done share repurchases as a strategy over the last 10 years. I think over 10, 12 years, we have returned about $15 billion to our shareholders, either in the form of share repurchases or in dividends. With the conviction that we have had in our initiatives, with what we see in terms of visibility, with the conversations we have had with the rating agencies, all put together, gave us the confidence to get back to the normal cadence of returning capital to shareholders.
Let's talk about electric vehicles. That has been a very volatile market. Where is consumer appetite on EVs? And thus, where are we in the pivot, either to EVs or away from EVs?
Yeah, we would like to say EV is a very secular trend. And if you go back and look at what Magna said in the last 4 or 5 years, we believed the penetration of EVs globally was in the low 30% range. And our predictions were North America's to be somewhere in the low teens, obviously Europe and China being much higher. At that time, Magna was considered to be very conservative in the predictions, but I think we are a little bit more realistic now. With that said, I think in the long term, EVs are here to stay. I think just like any technology, any transformation that happens, we are going through a little bit of a swing. But if you look at the mean of the wave, it's still pointing upwards. So in the next 5 to 10 years, I think we're going to see a significant EV. So EV has a tailwind. I think we're just going through the normal, call it the damping of any transformation that happens in any industry.
I'd love to get your C-suite perspective on what you're seeing on the cost side. Obviously, cost shocks post the pandemic, and businesses such as yourself have been working to adjust to that. Are those easing right now? Are you seeing areas of deflation? What does that look like as an operator?
It's a pretty good mix. I think from the interest rate perspective, we are seeing easing, as you know. Inflation is kind of easing back to maybe not at what it used to be, but we see a downward trajectory. But we have to keep in mind that the inflation that gets embedded, like for example, in the labor perspective, where you would have given the normal over the last 2 years, X% increases, now becomes the baseline. Even though inflation comes down, now we are talking on a higher base, the increases. That's where the operational excellence initiatives come into place. How do we make it better? How do we look at training people? How do we look at cost-cutting measures? How do you get higher efficiency in getting higher throughput with the same capital that we have? It still is something that we need to address, and our industry deals with that part of it. We call it productivity improvements. We have done that in the past. So overall, it's a mixed bag, but compared to the last couple of years, I think we see a little bit of easing.
Swami, I have to ask you about Frank Stronach, the allegations around sexual misconduct. I won't ask you to comment on the charges because that has to be tested out in court. But as a Magna executive, Frank Stronach and Magna were so intimately linked. And I'm curious the steps that you're taking internally to either make sure your employees are okay or to protect the Magna brand. The Globe recently reporting that references to Stronach have been taken off of the Magna website. What can you say about what Magna is doing to look forward and beyond some of these issues?
Yeah, I think, as we have said, Mr. Stronach has had no affiliations with Magna since relinquishing his control in 2010. It goes without saying the allegations are alarming, and if proven true, really go against everything we stand for as a company. We as a management are focused on making the workplace safe, healthful, and be able to give the protection to all the employees. What we've done, or any action that we have taken, is keeping in mind how to make this workplace as safe and helpful to the people and the Magna family as possible. It's an ongoing legal matter, and I hope you can understand that I cannot comment too much beyond that.